They look back at what happened last weekend and what could happen moving forward here with ESPN Sal Paolantonio as the Eagles really, I guess you would say, had one of the most polarizing picks of the entire draft, Sal. And you emailed me before the draft started and said the Eagles need a backup quarterback. Well, I wasn't thinking they were going to take one on the night you sent me that email.
Well, Michael, I'm just trying to keep you informed, you and your listeners. What can I do? I'm trying to do my part. I knew they were going to take a backup quarterback. I knew they were going to do it high in the draft. I knew they had some interest in Jalen Hurts because of the way they want to run their offense. But I was shocked that they took him in the second round. I actually got wind of it early on Friday, and I think that's when I emailed you. And I had a hint that it was going to be Hurts, and I was told to keep it to myself. Obviously, we are not allowed to tip the picks at ESPN and NFL Network. That's part of our agreement with the league. We want the drama to play out. We don't want to be giving away the picks to the audience before the team makes them. So I kept it close to the vest, but I knew they were going to pick a quarterback for sure. And, you know, I think you and I have talked about this over the last 2 to 3 months, that backup quarterback was a very important need for this team. You know, let's keep it real here, Michael. We love Carson Wentz, but they played in 6 playoff games in the Doug Peterson era, including a Super Bowl title. And Carson Wentz has had a grand total of 9 meaningless offensive snaps in those 6 postseason games. He has not been reliable enough. And the most important player in team history, dating back to 1933, was a backup quarterback named Foles.
I want to, have you go a little deeper on this. I did hear you during Scott Van Pelt's Sports Center the other night, and you insinuated that this might have been a Doug Peterson pick, that he might have had more influence on this pick than, I think most people think that Peterson kind of gets out of the way on draft night and lets Howie and those guys go. But do you think Peterson had a bigger voice on this pick than maybe most people think?
This was Doug Peterson's pick. And the dynamic within that organization is they are co-equal partners, Roseman and Peterson. Roseman makes the final call, but he is not going to do anything that Peterson hasn't bought into. That's just not the way it is. Roseman owes Peterson, and Peterson owes Roseman for that Super Bowl trophy that's in his office that we saw on draft night. But this was Peterson's pick. He and Press Taylor want to transform this offense. Gosh almighty, they scored 10 points against Seattle in the regular season, lost. Scored 10 points against Seattle in the postseason and lost. They need to be more dynamic and productive, and they need to be more reliable at the quarterback position. And Jalen Hurts does that for them. I like the pick, and it's not an outlier. It's not. When you look at him compared to Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, and Deshaun Watson in their senior years or their last years of college, he is as good as the 3 of them, and they were all picked in the first round.
Mm-hmm. I know it's funny because Jeff Mosher, who has done the show with me from time to time, and he texted me when they made that pick and said, do you remember Sal Powell on the show with us back in November? And he said that you had said about that the Eagles are kind of enthralled by this new wave quarterback, that, the new wave of the way the quarterback. And, of course, that would think we all kind of like raised our eyebrows like, but how do you see Hurts in 2020 as a backup quarterback or more than that?
He will be on the field. I texted Doug Peterson immediately after the pick. And I said, you got Carson. You just extended him. You just gave him $124 million. You have other needs. Why did you do this? And his text back to me, and I reported it on SportsCenter, and it's on Sal Pal ESPN on Instagram. He said, this guy is going to be a dynamic runner and passer in our offense. He's tough, and he's a proven winner, and he's a leader. And Michael, that does not sound to me like a coach that is going to keep Jalen Hurts on the bench. It just does not.
I agree, and by the way, I like the pick as well because I feel like the Eagles, and everybody keeps mentioning the kid Hill in New Orleans, and that might not be fair, but to me, It's more than Hill. It's all of these players around the league who do so many things that you have to account for. When you play the Chiefs, Tyreek Hill can beat you in a multitude of ways. You have the kid Taysom Hill. You have all of these smaller, shiftier players that can jet sweep and go around the end and, take a bubble screen. And it's just the Eagles do not have that gadget type of player.
No, but let's be clear about something. Jalen Hurts will not line up as a wide receiver.
Okay.
Jalen Hurts will line up as a running back and a quarterback, but not as a wide receiver. And you won't see jet sweeps of Jalen Hurts catching the ball and then sweeping on a reverse or otherwise. He may be handing it off to Jalen Reagor, and that's a whole different story. But Jalen Hurts will be running RPOs, and he'll be running zone read, and he will not be Taysom Hill in one important respect. He will not, two. He will not line up as a receiver, and Hill does. He will not line up as a tight end, and Hill does. He's not as big as Hill. He's not as thick as Hill. And he won't line up in special teams. They won't put him on the field in special teams. They want this guy to be available as the backup quarterback if Carson gets hurt. And Carson got hurt 3 of the last 4 years. So Taysom Hill is a special teamer, and Jalen Hurts will not be. That's why they got Jameis Winston, by the way, is because Winston's really going to be more of the backup quarterback to Drew Brees than Taysom Hill is.
Sure. Although Taysom Hill got $21 million, it shows you I was surprised. He only touched the ball 46 times. He hit 46 offensive touches last year, and yet they valued him at $21 million. It shows you how much these teams value having this quote-unquote extra weapon.
It is. Now, let's get to the Jalen Reagor pick. As much as I'm in love with the Jalen Hurts pick, I don't like the Jalen Reagor pick. Michael, he just dropped the ball way, way too much. He had not a number of drops where the ball was thrown right at him. I know people are very critical of me because I said, I don't like Reagor, and their argument is, well, he had poor quarterback play at TCU in his last year of college. And my thing is, if you go back and look at the tape, that quarterback put the ball on him several times where he dropped it. In addition to the drops, he had 6 lost fumbles in his last 2 seasons at TCU. So I would have loved if they had just done the smart, safe thing and taken Justin Jefferson there, who is a polished college receiver who played at the highest level in collegiate football in the SEC, won a championship with the Heisman Trophy quarterback, and played against the best secondaries in college football in the SEC. Reagor did not do that. He is the gadget guy. Hurts is not gadget. Hurts is RPOs and zone read runs. Those are not gadget plays. Those are structural parts of major offenses in the NFL. Reagor is the gadget guy, and they should have taken Justin Jefferson, who's not a gadget receiver. He's a polished NFL prospect.
Sal Pal Friday. Let's get into the potential. Derek Gunn over at NBC kind of insinuating that the Eagles are going to bring Jason Peters back. Now, I know your take on Dillard. The messaging is very interesting here, that they want to get younger. They let Peters go out and be a free agent. He didn't get a job, and now it sounds as if both sides want a reunion here.
Well, I don't like Dillard, and the film bears that out. He had the worst missed block ratio of any player at his position last year. Now, I know he's a rookie, but you got Carson Wentz, and your left tackle cannot be the worst win-block ratio guy in the NFL. That's a recipe for disaster when you have a quarterback who gets injured all the time. So I can understand. You can understand that I'm not shocked at all that they're bringing Jason Peters back.
Right.
But, Jason Peters is an older player who's definitely, we can agree, and everybody listening to this can agree, is on the back nine of his career. Maybe, going into the clubhouse. And Dillard has not performed to the level where they drafted him.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to get the same thing out of Reagor, to tell you the truth. I don't think he's going to come anywhere near where they picked him at 21. So I think, they understand that Dillard he's got to get some mentoring. He can't be the guy that you rely on at the left tackle position. He just can't. And Mike, last week I talked to you about the buzzword in the NFL around the draft, roster construction. Remember me talking about that?
Sure do.
About how teams are, so concerned about how long the offseason will be, how many practices there will be, how much they can get their hands on these players and coach them up and get them into meetings and get them on the field. So when you have that unknown, that giant variable that's different from every other year because of the pandemic and the shutdowns, you can't take a chance on a very important position like left tackle. You got to have somebody who you can put the helmet on and he can play with not a lot of coaching and instruction. And so that's why it's obvious they have to go after Peters.
Well, it's funny. Right before you came on, I said maybe if this isn't all going on, the Eagles feel better about Dillard, that they can get him through mini camps, get him through training camp, and work with him and mold him on the field. But not having that, maybe they just don't feel as comfortable and feel like they can go back to Old Faithful.
Oh, yeah, that's obvious. Now, we don't know. I don't think the NFL knows what they're going to do. They're obviously delaying the release of the schedule. I've heard all kinds of different scenarios that they are working on. They're working on starting on time. They're working on starting on time with no fans. They're working on a 16-game schedule that could be collapsed to 12, which I think is untenable. I don't think that's financially possible. I think they have to, if they're going to play a later schedule, they have to play all 16 games and just have the Super Bowl in March. Because if you lose, of course, Mike, think about it for a second. You're going to lose revenue from a lack of fans. You're going to lose revenue from parking and ticket sales and from beer and concessions and all that other stuff that you get at the stadium. That's going to be lost revenue. You multiply that by weeks, 4 weeks, you can't handle it. So you have to make it up with TV revenue.
It's funny. You have
to play a 16-game schedule. I think it's financially. If you don't, the salary cap will collapse in 2021, and players and the league will suffer.
I was listening to Chris Long, of course, the former Eagle, on a podcast this morning, and he was talking about he couldn't even imagine, obviously playing in a couple of Super Bowls, what would be like to walk out in a Super Bowl with no fans out there if you're in February playing in the Super Bowl. I mean, can you envision that being a possibility?
No, I cannot, and I don't think they are. I think they think then there will be, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I just read stuff like you. I think they think that there'll be herd immunity and enough treatment. But, Mike, do we know?
Obviously not. No, we have no clue what's going on. I mean, obviously day to day, minute by minute, hour to hour. I do want to ask you real quick, though.
Here's what I want to know. I want to know if tomorrow I can go play golf in New Jersey.
You can.
And the answer to that seems to be yes.
Yes.
And then I want to know, on May 31st, can I take a bike ride with my wife on the boardwalk in Ocean City? That's all. That's what. And I want to know that my granddaughters can go back to school in September.
I do know this. The Ventnor beaches are opening, but the boardwalk will be closed. Whatever that's worth for you.
Okay.
You want to go, and the beach isn't open for sunbathing. It's just, I guess, for a walk or, just to get outside. It's for exercise. It's not for sitting on the beach. But that's going to be first. But apparently the boardwalk in Ventnor is going to still be closed.
Yeah, it's a baby step.
Yeah.
So, I can tell you that, broadcasters like us, ESPN, Fox, NBC, all the national broadcasters are working towards this goal that there will be NBA games and Major League Baseball. I don't know about the NHL. And that it will happen sometime in this summer, and that those games will happen in an environmental and medical bubble, and that there will be pool cameras, and that the broadcast teams will be in a remote location. They will not be on site.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And there will be no fans.
Crazy.
I can tell you that is what's happening this summer. And I'm going to speculate that the NFL will have no fans at the beginning of the season. Preseason, they'll try it. They'll try a couple of preseason games, and maybe one or two.
Right.
And then they'll try it for a couple of regular season games, and slowly try to get some fans into the stadium. But obviously, Mike, the atmosphere will be different, and we'll have to work with it and figure it out. But fans, here's an interesting statistic, and I want people to understand this. And I reported this on SportsCenter yesterday, and it got no traction. But I'm going to say it on the Mike Gill show, and people. I'm going to talk about it on my Instagram on Sal Pal ESPN. In the National Football League, only 7% of NFL fans attend an NFL game in their lifetime.
Wow.
Let me repeat that. Only 7% of NFL fans attend an NFL game in their lifetime. 93% of NFL fans consume NFL football on television their entire life. So I can't stress this enough. You have to play a 16-game schedule. The ratings will be incredible. The advertising dollars will increase. The financial model for the league will survive as a result. So people who say they should collapse the schedule from 16 to 12 are silly. And I know there are people in the league who are advocating that and thinking they can make up the money somewhere else. But there are a lot of people in the league who are telling them they're out of their minds, that the airwaves are clear. There's not going to be anything else on television. Go the entire 16 games, even if you have to start the season in October.
And move it back. Just push it back into March.
Push it back into March. Even if you have to go November 1, even if training camps open October 1, and you start the season November 1, you got to play the entire 16-game schedule for it to work financially, or the salary cap will collapse. Teams are really concerned that PSLs and club suites and club seats and suites will all be frozen. That money won't come in. That's the lion's share of the gate.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And as you mentioned, we had Bob Nightingale yesterday talking about the baseball, and he said, look, they might let 1,000 fans in, maybe 2,000, 5,000 by, October. But you're watching a football game with 5,000 people in the stadium, that's not paying the bills.
No, because you only have 16 games, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
you only have 16 games, and they say that over 70% of the suites, club seats, and PSLs in NFL stadiums. Remember, PSLs, they don't have that in Major League Baseball,
right?
Because PSLs is a major financial part of what they do. They say that over 70% of those people, PSL owners, club suites, and club seats and suites, are 55 and over.
Jeez. Which
is a vulnerable part of the population. So the NFL is really concerned about PSLs getting dumped. And if you have a wholesale dumping of PSLs in 32 markets, the financial system of the NFL collapses.
Sal Paolantonio, Sal Pal Friday. By the way, the quote of the weekend, and I think you talked about this on your SportsCenter hit, Howie Roseman with Mike Florio saying, grab the side of the boat, boys. It's going to be rocky out there with this pick.
Yeah, and when he said rocky, he wasn't talking about Sylvester Stallone either.
I mean, he knew, but he also said, I thought that the fans would change once they saw this guy on tape and listened to him talk. And I'm thinking, wow, really that the people all of a sudden were just going to change once they saw this guy running around? I mean, Eagle fans, they can be irrational at times.
Really?
All right, ESPN Sal Paolantonio, Sal Pal ESPN on Instagram. Check out his thoughts over there. And as he mentioned, there'll be plenty of more thoughts he'll be putting up this weekend on the NFL and the NFL draft. And as he just mentioned, and we'll see when NFL gets back and going. But we'll talk more about this.
Yeah, what I've been doing, Mike, is I've been putting my appearances, like the one on Get Up earlier in the week, which got a huge number of people watched it. Because Eagles fans, their appetite for news is incredible.
Crazy.
I put that on my Instagram. I'm putting all my Sports Center hits on Instagram on Sal Pal ESPN because people these days are they're just trying to get their lives together, and so as much as we can stay connected with the fans who have supported me, for all these years, it's a small way that I can give back.
Well, a Sal Pal Friday. The fans listening and appreciate it and enjoy it, and great information. Have a good weekend, and hopefully these beaches will open for us all soon.
Okay, Mike. Hey, listen, I'm coming down. I can't wait to see you. I'll be down there, baby. As soon as they open up, as soon as Governor Murphy flips the switch, I'm coming down, and we're going to Uncle Bill's.
That's right. That's right. We got the task force meeting at Uncle Bill's Pancake House. Sal Paolantonio, ESPN. Thanks, pal. All right, ESPN Sal Paolantonio here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.